Accessibility is a human right. I stare at the title of the article that pops up in my notification bar, and I think about those with white canes, guide dogs, wheelchairs. I think about the 8 million Canadians who have at least one disability. I think about the barriers they faced every day, barriers that extend beyond the physical obstacles, barriers that include society's lack of inclusive design and attitude. For the past 4 years, I've been working on several patent-pending devices that have garnered over $50,000 in awards and scholarships from universities, nonprofit organizations, and research institutions worldwide. The struggles of visually impaired are personal for me because of my grandpa's journey. He began experiencing epileptic seizures which resulted in acute blindness. I grew curious about the challenges that visually impaired people face, including injuries as a result of collisions and falls. By implementing sensory experience technologies into the lives of visually impaired individuals, the rates of these injuries and falls can be greatly reduced. I'm also invested in my research because the field of visually impairment aid tools has been simply overlooked in terms of innovation, leading to the ubiquity of the white cane. Although effective in many ways, the white cane contains various limitations, such as incoming objects moving at high speeds are impossible to detect, and 2, the cane only assists in a limited range. Now, let's imagine a futuristic concept, shall we? What if we could remotely control individuals like visually impaired people, similar to how we remote control toy cars, for example, in terms of the walking direction and movement? Well, it's no longer just science fiction, or is it a futuristic thought, because this can be done through a very special procedure and also non-invasive called the Galvanic Vestibular Stimulation. So before I get into what the Galvanic Vestibular Stimulation is, let's talk about the vestibular system. It's essentially our body's internal gyroscope. Located in the inner ear, it contains 3 semicircular canals and 2 otolith organs. The semicircular canals within the vestibular system are filled with fluid and lined with these tiny, tiny hair cells. When the head moves, the fluid shifts, causing the hair cells to bend, and when the hair cells bend, it sends signals up into the brain and informing us about our own sense of orientation. The otolith organs, on the other hand, detect linear acceleration and gravity. And when these systems all work together, they send signals via the vestibular nerve into the brain, informing us about our own balance and spatial orientation. So going back to the galvanic vestibular stimulation, it's essentially leveraging the system by applying small electric currents to 2 electrodes pads that are placed on the skin behind the ear on the head. This current mimics the natural perceived signal of the vestibular system, tricking it into perceiving motion. By carefully modulating this electrical current, we're able to create and influence a person's sense of balance and direction of motion unconsciously. So I embarked on a mission to create a practical and impactful solution within the realm of visually impairment aid tools. So first I set out to create a prototype, which unexpectedly began with a remote-controlled toy car. I discovered that the galvanic vestibular stimulation, just like the remote toy car, directed current in both clockwise and counterclockwise directions within their motors. And the current requirement was a precise 2 to 3 milliamps, which matched the galvanic vestibular stimulation's requirement. So I naturally did what a stupid teenager would do, would be to hook 2 electrode pads straight into the electrode circuit system in the remote-controlled toy car, and I put it on my ear behind my head where my vestibular system and brain was. And I electrocuted myself. Not really, because when I pushed the lever within the remote controller of the toy car, I felt an invisible force that was pushing me onto one side. And when I reversed this lever, I felt another invisible force that was pushing me onto the other side. So using this idea, I started to design custom printed circuit boards that 1, controlled the direction of the current, and 2, directed the current flow and featured finally a safety mechanism that averted the potential overflow of the current. So just in case it goes crazy and starts electrocuting me again. So subsequently, I also integrated with my prior research in computer vision and artificial intelligence, fusing it with new techniques such as epipolar geometry. I spent a year and hundreds of hours of experimentation and design to finally design a semi-autonomous collision avoidance device that took a user from point A to point B through a sea of obstacles unconsciously. My research utilized the power of custom-printed circuit boards, three-dimensional depth cameras, artificial intelligence for object detection, and finally, the galvanic vestibular stimulation. Now, to give an example of how my product works in real life, imagine just walking down the street, for example, and suddenly an object comes whizzing by in front of you. Traditional visually impairment aid tools will not be able to detect this object simply because it's moving too fast and it's in motion. However, my device that utilizes the galvanic vestibular stimulation and artificial intelligence will be able to capture this object, identify where it is, identify the velocity, acceleration, and position, and quickly make a decision to path a collision avoidance path in the computer. And simultaneously, it's sending vestibular signals to the vestibular system, subtly guiding the user to change direction and avoid the collision. This process happens almost unconsciously to the user and simultaneously. So people often ask where my interest began. I always begin with an incident in 7th grade when I visited a local care home, where in Chinese translated, if I had the money, I would have been able to see today. These were the words of Judy, who suffered from epileptic seizures and also resulted in acute blindness. Seeing Judy smile when I showed her each one of my devices over the following years made me realize the significant difference that this kind of technology can make in someone's life. Accessibility is a human right. It means that everyone, regardless of their physical and sensory experiences, get to navigate their life with confidence and independence. It's about removing the barriers, both societal and physical, ensuring that everyone has equal opportunities and experiences. Looking forward, my goal is to make my device as accessible and my technology as accessible as possible. I've already published all my findings transparently and openly on Journal of Student Research, collaborating with other doctorates from different universities, hoping for others to build upon my work and develop their own innovations. By sharing knowledge and embracing accessibility, we can create a world where everyone, regardless of their abilities, can navigate life with confidence and with dignity.